Hey there, my name is Shane Craddock, and this is the Inner Edge podcast, where I share a different take on how to lead and live a sustainable, high-performance life. Over the course of different episodes, I'm going to challenge the belief that tension, stress, and struggle are essential to success and creativity. My experience is that there's an easier way, there's a better way, and indeed there's an essential way that we need to explore for the times that we live in. So let's go ahead, let's jump in and explore. I was hosting a kind of a gathering of business owners and CEOs recently, and I started off by telling them that the theme of the session was going to be about gratitude. And immediately I could feel one person in particular close to me, a man who, without me even looking at his face, I knew his eyes were going to heaven. Because certainly maybe in a male Irish context of a certain vintage, you're thinking, oh, here we go. This is kind of soft rubbish. And I have to be honest, I think I've probably been in that camp until probably the last couple of years. And in 2025 in particular, this year, I decided I was going to be more intentional about researching gratitude and the neuroscience around it in particular. And I've discovered quite a few things that have surprised me. And I want to share maybe a little bit about that today. That for me, gratitude maybe isn't what you think necessarily. I think also that a lot of people maybe practice it in not really an effective way because there's things like journaling and things like that people do. But let me just start out by saying that, first of all, I don't think gratitude is soft. I think it's actually a very strategic performance enabler. I don't think it's about writing pages in journals, even though that does have a positive effect. But I suppose what I want to kind of lean into today is what I've found through science over the last 12 months in particular is that neuroscience and psychology is saying something very practical about gratitude and appreciation. And in simple terms, you could say gratitude is one of the fastest biological levers that we have for moving and improving our internal state, our mood. And high quality research, like not pop psychology, is backing this up. Now, probably the world's leading researcher on gratitude is a man called Dr. Robert Emmons. And what he has found that even simple gratitude practice will improve your mood, your sleep, and, believe it or not, your resilience. There's quite a few people actually working in this area, but I suppose a couple that stand out for me. One would be Dr. Robert Emmons. Another one is Dr. Glenn Fox. And he's shown that fMRI studies, in those studies, that gratitude activates the medial prefrontal cortex. And that's the part of the brain that regulates your emotion, your decision-making, and your conscious choice. So gratitude is having quite a significant impact, even on those areas I've listed alone. So it's not a sentimental thing. This is about neuromechanical management in a way. And so I think for ambitious leaders and performers, it's a really low-friction way to move yourself out of an anxious threat mode or stress mode into a calmer clarity mode in less than probably 60 seconds. So let's just look at a little bit of what gratitude does in the brain based on the strongest research. So I mentioned there about the prefrontal cortex with Glenn Fox and the fMRI studies. So he has shown that gratitude lights up what's called the medial prefrontal cortex. That's the part of your brain, is kind of the executive control part of the brain. And to me, that's probably one of the main things to consider in terms of it's the part that really controls how you manage yourself, the quality of your thinking, how you adapt in the moment, your creativity. The research is also showing that it calms down the amygdala. And a lot of the research around stress in that area shows that signals of safety, like, for example, gratitude, they reduce the activation of the amygdala. So there's less alarm inside in you, there's less vigilance, and so you have more bandwidth to take in what's actually going on. Your focus is wider, it's broader. Now, also what the research is showing through a woman called Barbara Friedrichsen, if you're interested in checking her out, is that it triggers reward and bonding chemistry with people. So, I mean, it improves your emotional stability, and it boosts dopamine, but also oxytocin. And oxytocin is kind of called, I think, the love chemical. It's where that connection. So where that's lacking, there's generally going to be an issue in terms of just connections, relatability. So it's a kind of an amazing, it's amazing what this particular mode or state that we have as humans, gratitude, being grateful, what it actually is doing and what science is showing that it's doing. It's also showing improved physiological resilience. So there's a gentleman called Paul Mills who has shown through his research that gratitude practices on a regular basis improve heart health. They reduce inflammation, which actually blows my mind. So inflammation is obviously a major cause of disease. So they're showing that gratitude practice reduce inflammation. It's an anti-inflammatory practice. And it also improves your HRV. And to me, I just think that's incredible. And I think that's one of the reasons why gratitude and appreciation is it's a state management tool. It's not just tricking your mood or trying to fake yourself into a different type of mood. Gratitude changes how your brain and your body operate in real time. And I think the science is quite compelling. Now, Dr. Robert Emmons that I mentioned earlier on, he found something quite fascinating. He found that people who practice gratitude consistently don't just feel better, they actually think better. Now, if you've ever listened to me talk or you've ever worked with me in any capacity or done some of my programs, you'll know that I will say that your state directly impacts the quality of your thinking. So when your state goes down, your thinking goes down with it. When your state goes up, your thinking goes up with it too. So gratitude to me is now backing that up. Sorry, the gratitude research is backing that up. And what they're showing is gratitude redirects your attention from what's missing or what's wrong to actually what's right or what's available. And that attentional shift alone calms you down. It makes you feel better, but then you think better, which increases your problem-solving capacity and your emotional regulation. And both of those things are essential to high performance for anybody in any field, but particularly for leaders in business. Now, elite athletes will do that instinctively. They will know, and they're often sometimes trained before a major competition, that they might reflect on the people who support them. Not for emotional reasons, but it just dials down self-consciousness and it can widen your cognitive bandwidth. You're able to take in more, your focus is better. So in that way, just in very simple terms, gratitude then becomes a competitive advantage because you're better. I was working with a founder, business owner there a few years ago. I remember he felt like his mind was running on fumes, that he was always behind, he was always under pressure, he was never quite there. And we did lots of different things through many months of work together. But there was one thing that I remember stood out that made a difference to him for whatever reason. Because I asked him to try one thing for a week. And I just said, look, because he was always moaning. He was always giving out the opposite of a grateful person. So I just said, look, every morning, take 20 to 30 seconds and just think of one person that's helped you recently and just feel gratitude for them. Don't be writing anything down. Don't journal about it. What I want you to do is I want you to embody the feeling in a real way for 20 to 30 seconds and just feel grateful for that person. Now, after a week, he said he didn't know what was happening, but he felt clearer and he felt less edgy, which for him was a big thing. And as a result, he was more focused. So the reality now, as hopefully you're kind of hearing what I've said earlier on about the science, is that what he was actually doing was turning off his stress circuitry and he was reactivating his prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that help us all think, help us lead. What was interesting was he was working at a much higher level, better level. Even though his workload didn't change, he did. He changed his state. Now, if you can imagine, I think a useful metaphor could be, think about your mind as like a room with very dim lighting. So when you're stressed, everything looks closer and sharper than it actually is. And shadows even can seem like threats. They're not real. And being more grateful, having gratitude in a real sense, embodying it, feeling it, is like turning on a wider, softer light. The room hasn't changed, but you can see more. Your ability to see what's actually there, not what's imagined, has now increased. So if you think about it like that, gratitude in a way, is a reset button for your inner operating system. It can clear the fog on the windshield, and suddenly the road ahead becomes visible again. And that seems to be what science is pointing to, that gratitude is not just positivity. It's actually perceptual clarity. It's actually very, very powerful enabler of real clarity of mind. So what about you? Think about a couple of questions here for you. So where right now are you running your day, your work, your life from stress mode or even threat mode? Or where does your world feel tight or heavy or clunky? Or where's clarity missing? You probably have it in some areas, but not necessarily others. And then if you think about that area, I don't know, could you think about somebody who or what even can you feel gratitude for in this moment? Like, not the idea of gratitude, not a list of things you should appreciate. I know that the gratitude journaling industry is huge now, and I've tried that myself. And I think that's where maybe, as somebody said to me recently, it was a bit like they couldn't quite figure out where gratitude fitted within their own personal operating system. It was almost like they set a stone in their shoe. They couldn't quite figure out the benefit of it. Was it actually worthwhile? And I think I was the same. I have a different view on it now, and I think the science has helped me kind of see something different. Insofar as that, I know many people who use gratitude journaling; they're big fans of it. But if you met them, you'd never get a sense that they were a grateful person. And in a way, it's almost like they're using gratitude journaling as a way to, it's almost like an aspirin for them to kind of reduce the pain. But if you embody gratitude and really bring it into your body so that it fundamentally changes your emotion, your state, your mood, and you do that on a consistent basis, it seems to be that you're training your body and your brain to bring something in that's very, very powerful all around what I'm saying around that perceptual clarity, your mood management, you think better. So in a ways, and it depends on what's working for you, of course, but sometimes the writing of something on a repetitive basis is very surface level. And what I'm seeing more and more, and the research has pointed to it now, is that embodying it, bringing it in, really deep feeling of gratitude in a genuine way, fundamentally changes your body and your brain, and therefore your mind, and therefore your perception, and therefore you. So I think, you can make a list of things to be grateful for or that you should appreciate, or you can actually make a list of things that you actually are and people that you are actually grateful for, because there's so much of that around us, especially in today's world, especially if you're somebody who's able to listen to this podcast. And it could be one person, even somebody who's annoying you, even somebody who's difficult, because you can be grateful for maybe what they're bringing out in you. Maybe it's raising your game. Maybe it's you making you look in a new direction. It's funny. I spoke to somebody recently who ended up kind of losing their stake in a business over a year ago. And at the time they were devastated. And when we worked together, it was more about moving back on track and looking at possibilities, which took some time. But I spoke to them recently, and they set up their own business because of this trauma. And as they said to me, they said they've earned more in 1 year than they've ever earned before. And they love their work. They love the lessons that they learned through the difficulty. And he said he was so grateful for the adversity that there was a few people that, at the start, he would have said would have done something nasty to him. But he said now he's realizing if they hadn't done it, he would have been stuck in the same situation. So he said, I'm so grateful to them for being so nasty to me. He said, it's weird, but that's exactly what I'm talking about. There's this fundamental shift. And in a way, when that shift happens, it's what I would say in my language, that's when your inner CEO comes back online, that's the best of you that's coming back in. So maybe for today, just think about this. Like, gratitude isn't just about feeling good. I think it's more about thinking clearly. And that's what's available to us in any context, in any situation, in any circumstances. And then when your state shifts upwards, your performance will change. And in that context, gratitude is something very, very powerful. That's it for this week. Ciao for now.